Good morning. Good morning. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Woo! We've got some people stuck in the rain, it seems like, here today. But welcome to Unity of Charlotte. My name is Reverend Jim Ernston. I am the co-minister here along with Reverend Lisa Herklotz. It is so great to have you here in the chapel, in the sanctuary. Those of you at home, we are on the road. There's 5 of you on Zoom here, and we welcome you, and we're so glad that you are participating via technology of the day. So welcome to Unity of Charlotte and our virtual service on Zoom. Let's go ahead and join together in our mission statement. This is the reason that we're here, our mission. So out loud, Unity of Charlotte is the place where we nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, we are here to love, grow, and serve. Absolutely, love, grow, and serve. If you are here for the first time, please gently raise your hand, and we will welcome you. Is there anyone at home? Raise your hand, and a couple people at home. So welcome. We welcome you on Zoom as well. So the cool part about watching it on Zoom, you don't have to stand up and say hello. So, but welcome. We invite you to come here in person and give us a chance to say hello to you and answer any of your questions as well. So we have a couple of different ways in which you can find out what's going on at Unity of Charlotte. There is our website. There is our newsletter. You can sign up for that newsletter on the website. There's the Facebook channel. There's YouTube. What is YouTube called? YouTube is a YouTube, Unity of Charlotte. And then our bulletin board here in person down the hallway. So all those different ways of finding out what we're doing here at Unity of Charlotte. Let's go ahead and move into prayer. I invite you to take a breath. Close your eyes if that feels natural. We take this moment to move within. We gently shift from this thinking in our brain down to the feeling in our heart space. And we notice that heart space and allow it to expand at this time. This is the moment for deep awareness within our lives. I open myself up to that reality that as above, so in my humanity as well. I invite my mind and my heart to recognize the fact that I am divine. I rise into the realization in the aspect of my being, that physical, that mental, the emotional, and spiritual, all aspects of this life that I live is divine. I appreciate this awareness and the awareness of all the gifts in my life. I practice gratitude. For that we know that as God is, I am as well. That this divine truth applies to me in all situations, for I am never alone. And with that we say, Amen. Reverend Lisa also talked about an affirmation for us in this Lent season that we have. And this is available out in the hallway as well, so you can take one of these home and utilize and use this affirmation throughout the week. Let me read that out loud as well. I affirm the power of the Christ Spirit indwelling in all beings everywhere and influencing their thoughts, words, and actions to work for the good of the whole. A great affirmation to read every day as well. At this point, we have the chance to say out loud the name of somebody or a situation that may be in need of prayer at this time. So I invite you to say that name or situation out loud now. We hold these names, we hold these situations in our heart. We offer them up as a community in prayer, knowing that God is there. Amen. That prayer team that we spoke of earlier practices prayer with your prayer requests every day. You can sign up for that prayer. You can utilize that prayer request here in person, out in the hall. You can sign that slip, put it in that box. It ends up in being emailed out. You can utilize our prayer form on our website. So it's clicking of the button, and that again gets emailed to our lead who compiles all those. The prayer team receives those, prays over them for a couple of weeks, and then we send them on to Silent Unity that prays for them for approximately 30 days. So that situation, those people are prayed up from our prayer team here. And again, they are meeting next week here as we prepare for the new year in terms of our prayer team. Please join me in our unity prayer of oneness. So out loud, there is one presence and one power in my life and universe, God the good, omnipotence. Also know that Silent Unity has an app on your smartphone. They have an 800 phone number that you can use as well. You can find that online. And now I invite up Paulette, who is going to read our daily word.
Quietness. In quietness, I'm refreshed and renewed. Sometimes, especially on my busiest days, I need to be quiet, to step away for a few moments and simply be. I begin by finding a comfortable place. I feel my body relax, my breathing becomes regular and easy, and the busy stream of my thoughts slow as I open my mind and heart. I'm reading from my phone, so please, and heart to the divine presence within me. I affirm God is here. Relaxation deepens as I focus on this simple thought. Peace, love, wisdom, and understanding fill my awareness. In this timeless moment, there is no discord. There are no concerns. There is only God within and all around me. My heart's wisdom hears the words, and I'm with you always. Refreshed and renewed, I return to the activities of my day. My soul is at peace, and my mind is clear. Inner harmony is restored. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46, verse 10.
No matter what, pray. That's what we're going to be looking at today as we continue on this journey through Lent, through these 40 days of following the story of Jesus, through his last 40 days and our own spiritual journey as we move through our own release, letting go, and transformation. I want to begin, however, by I don't have the, yes, I do. I do have it. I want to begin by recognizing that March is Women's History Month. February was Black History Month. March is Women's History Month. We also have Earth Awareness Month, Gay Pride Month coming up. And these are all really important because this is a history that we're now recalling and reclaiming so that we can once again live from wholeness. We can't leave any part of ourselves out, individually or collectively, and remember wholeness. So we're in Women's History Month, so what better person to recognize but Myrtle Fillmore? Myrtle Fillmore, as you might know, is co-founder along with Charles Fillmore of the Unity Movement. But there's some interesting things I found out regarding Myrtle from an article written by Reverend Kelly Isola that said Myrtle was one of the earliest feminists. And I never really thought about her that way, but here's an interesting thing. The feminist movement, or the equal rights movement for women, began in the mid-1800s, which is when Myrtle was born. The New Thought movement and the equal rights for women movement emerged at the same time in history. And there's no accident, because really within each one of them is the core of wanting a transformation back to wholeness. And I thought that was a rather fascinating correlation. Something else I learned about Myrtle is that she attended Oberlin College, which was the first college in the country to admit women. Interesting. So she was a leader in many rights that I wasn't really aware of. Now, I want to just share myself. Let's see, about the 80s is when I started to really become aware of the feminist movement. And the term feminist has a lot of different reactions because it's got a lot of different meanings to people. Even so, because I, more than anybody, was all about equal rights for women in my young adulthood, but I did not want to be associated to a feminist group because I thought it meant anti-male, anti-man, like it was against. And this is really not true. While there may have been some who spoke out in that way, this is not true of the feminist movement or the feminist theology that developed at this time. What it really meant was a reclaiming of the story of the feminine that had been lost throughout history, so that it brings back a balance. Wholeness is about a balance of the masculine and the feminine. And this is talking about within us individually. We each have our masculine and feminine attributes, which we're going to be studying in Divine Audacity as we look at the 12 powers. But we also look at it how it reflects in our society. And it was about reclaiming a healthy transformation to wholeness. And this was really the aim of both, to bring about a transformative healing universally. So I thought that was rather fascinating. Both of these movements arose at the same time. Now, as we know, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore both put great emphasis on prayer in the Unity movement as a very powerful modality for bringing about this healing and transformation. And that leads us to what we're going to be talking about today. I just added a quote from Myrtle about prayer as she says, "As we pray, the word of life is going into us, breaking up old beliefs, fixed beliefs, and reorganizing our lives." Now, if you think that is a pretty potent tool, that is literally breaking up the old fixed beliefs and reorganizing our lives so we live more in the pattern of wholeness. So let's return to the story of Jesus, where we left off when Reverend Jim spoke last week. He had gone to the Garden of Gethsemane. He had brought with him 3 of his closest disciples, Peter, James, and John. Interesting to note that these were the 3 that also he took up into the mountain when he had his experience of transfiguration. So these 3 knew who he was. They had witnessed it. And these are the 3 that came into the garden with him. We're going to move to the next scripture. And this one little piece we're going to spend today on. Because this was the next thing. And if you had, who's been following in the Unity booklet? Anyone been following? Good, good, good. So you will know then that on Sunday, they talked about this. This is the scripture that they brought up. And I thought, well, it's like one little sentence. How can I write a whole talk on? Well, let me tell you. I had to cut stuff out. It is one powerful sentence, and we're gonna explore that. So it begins with Matthew 26:39. And it says, and going a little farther into the garden, he threw himself on the ground and prayed. Now in Luke 22:41, there's a little added thing. It says he went a little further, about a stone's cast, which means about as far as you can throw a stone, 50, 60 yards, which just indicated that he didn't want to move too far away from the friends that he brought to support him. And they could hear as he prayed out loud, because he did not go into seclusion. So here he is, casting himself on the ground in the Garden of Gethsemane. Now, another interesting fact I picked up in doing my research on this is one of the Bible scholars said that throughout the Bible, when Jesus prayed, he never bowed his head. He looked up. He looked upward. And he usually had his hands raised. Whenever he prayed with people or publicly, he looked up. I thought that was very interesting. He was looking towards the heaven. His whole energy was uplifting. But in the Garden of Gethsemane alone, he fell to the ground, which I think can indicate to us and signify the deep level of heaviness and sorrow that he must be feeling at this moment, knowing what is to come. This has been a journey that he knew he was heading into. He knew where this journey was leading. He knew the actions that he took were going to lead him to this point. And now here he is. And the weight of that is upon him. When I think about Jesus in the garden, and I really just put myself there for a moment. Where in your own life have you experienced something so overwhelming, so heavy, perhaps, that it literally brought you to your knees or to the ground? We've all had moments in our life. Perhaps there's something going on right now. Maybe it doesn't have to be the same situation that Jesus was facing, because this is any time we're carrying a burden of sadness or of sorrow or of fear. But I think that Jesus was not only experiencing his own journey and where it was about to take him, and knowing that he had to make this decision to say yes to this. But imagine someone who saw the world through the eyes of unconditional love. He saw people through the eyes and heart of unconditional love. He saw what was possible for humanity, that we didn't have to keep suffering, that we didn't have to suffer these sickness, we didn't have to suffer slavery, we didn't have to suffer fear of lack, that all of that was driving everything that was going on in the world. But it wasn't necessary if we just knew who we really were. And he brought this message and he taught this message and he healed and he did miracles for 3 years. And he looked out on the world and saw where we were. That's a sadness that can't be measured. And if you're a parent, but even if you're not, there's always places in our lives where, I just think of a parent because, you have to watch your children go through their journey, right? And they're going to make mistakes. And they're going to bring suffering into their lives. And as an adult, where you've already gone through your journey in growing up, you look back and go, you just don't have to, it doesn't have to be that way, right? We've had friends that we watch taking actions that we know are going to cause them pain. But they have to walk their journey, right? And you want to tell them, you don't have to suffer. You don't have to go through that, take that path. But each individual has to go walk their way. So this is the kind of thing I think was reflective on was happening in Jesus' heart. Not only just the tremendous impact of what he was about to say yes to for his own individual life, but for humankind, because he saw God everywhere. So I want to go to the idea that he was, the idea of the action of prostration. The action of prostration is to bow, to kneel, to lay yourself flat on the ground. And it has had a cultural and religious significance throughout the world, throughout time, really. So I want to take a moment to really look at this idea of prostration, because this was a common practice that was usually done as an act of submission of someone who is inferior to someone who is superior, such as an act you would do to a king or some high official. And it might be interesting to note here that the emperor of Rome was considered a Christ and called himself the Son of God, because they believed they were of God, and that's what made them emperor. So that's another talk we'll go into when we start talking about. But so people prostrated to them as a sign of subservience and obedience to. Now, Jesus, if you remember, in the 40 days in the desert when he was going through all the temptations, releasing all his temptations, one of the temptations was to fall down and worship Satan. Now, metaphysically, we understand that to mean really he was tempted to use the powers that he had for worldly gain, to fall down and be obedient to the ego mind, the self-made mind, and deny God. So prostration meant to come into obedience to. But it also can mean an act of humility and submission. Humility and submission, which is, in our language, maybe acceptance and release. It's a letting go of our smaller self, our limited, that might be a better way to put it than smaller, our limited sense of self, which we identify quite strongly with, don't we? I know I still do. I'm still Lisa in a body, and I do these things, and there's an identity that we use to live in this world. But when it rules our world, then we suffer. So let's look at this word metaphysically. A truly humble and obedient attitude of mind toward God. Humble and obedient attitude. So it's a state of mind we're talking about, right? It's not a state of resistance, it's a state of release and submission to. And we understand God not as this superior figure outside of us that we're bowing down to, but literally the divine life that lives within us and every living thing. God is the wholeness and the oneness, the single power of good in this universe. So when we have the idea of bowing down and being obedient and humble to that which is God, we are actually realigning ourselves with our own divine nature. We're giving up that which is self-centered and coming into that which is holy. Another metaphysical perspective, a humbling or prostrating of the outer sense thoughts and activities that the inner Christ may be given first place in consciousness. So remember I said when we cling to the identity of ourselves as this human only and forget our divine nature, then we are literally shutting out our own Christness, our own divinity, our connection and communion to God and that which is whole. When we humble or prostrate our outer sense thoughts, our thoughts, because this is all happening in our mind and in our soul. When we humble those thoughts and begin to and agree to and accept to obey the spiritual universal laws of God, we find ourselves with a consecrated attitude of mind. And consecrated means made holy or sacred, a sacred state of mind. So this gives us a different perspective. And here's Jesus, flat on the ground. He has come to a very critical point in his life. We find these points ourselves. They don't have to be as huge a thing as it seems Jesus was facing, but we face things all the time that bring us to a point where we have to decide, who are we serving? And can I lay down my ego for a moment and allow my Christness, my spirit, my divine nature to come through, to guide my ego mind, to guide my human mind. Human mind is not gone because we're still here. But when we release to that part of us, which is of God, well, that's not true because all parts of us are of God. There isn't any part of us that's not of God, just to be clear. But we release to that which knows, that lives in the awareness that we are all God. Then our journey takes on a whole different perspective. So I want you to take for a moment, this was the most vulnerable and critical time in Jesus' life. And what did he do? He prostrated and prayed. No matter what, pray. So I want you to take a moment to look in your own life right now and anything you have going on that you feel ready to lay down, that you feel ready to open up and release to that greater life that is within you, that divine Christness that's just waiting to express itself in every situation, regardless of how it appears to be. I want to share with you my spiritual journey has been, well, feels like a long one to me. When I think back how many years this was, it's like, well, maybe it's not that long in perspective. But from my lifespan, since my late 20s, I have been on a very dedicated and committed spiritual journey. One I was thrust into, but it was clear this was what I needed to do. And through that time, I went through this process of continuing to release that which was limited, to have these experiences that I know Jesus lived from, to see the world from the eyes and heart of unconditional love, to know, not just have the idea of oneness, but to know how we are so interconnected and how everything we say and do is so integral to our collective wellness and wholeness. I've seen it and I've lived from it, at least in temporary moments. And I kept wondering, why doesn't everybody know this? Right? We think everyone should know because we've had this experience. And, and I know many of you have experienced this just coming to unity. Our families don't understand. They're living in an old paradigm generally. Many of our friends live in an old paradigm. We have entered a new paradigm. And we're waiting for things to catch up, like Jesus was. Jesus introduced a brand new paradigm of living, a brand new mindset. And there were those who heard him, at least temporarily, but he was waiting for the rest of humanity to catch up. And we're still doing that. So the heaviness that I feel, is thinking that we've really made progress. I look out and I see progress and I see where we've come and where we've been, and it's like, wow, even in my short lifetime. But the heaviness I feel today, as some of you may, is seeing where we are right now and thinking, what happened? Where did the love go? Where did the sense of community go? How did fear grow so large again that the voices we're hearing are filled with anger and separation and divisiveness? And when I stand in that and I truly allow it into my heart and mind and feel it, it is heavy and frightening. And it feels overwhelming because I think, what could I possibly do? It's just like me. I'm just one of so many. And then I pray. And then I pray. So what does that really mean? What does that really mean, I pray? Let's talk about now prayer as we understand it in unity, because this is one of my favorite quotes by Charles Fillmore. He says, prayer is the most highly accelerated mind action known. Doesn't that make you feel like your mind just goes zing? Now, here's the interesting thing. In order to come into this state of high accelerated action, what do we have to do? Slow down. I just thought that was interesting to realize that in order to get into this highly accelerated mind action, we have to slow down. We have to become still. And I don't mean just your body sitting on a meditation mat. I mean at any moment, just pausing out of the flurry of thoughts that keep us continually moving in a distracted state. And to go within, to turn within. Prayer is an act of tuning out the normal state of distraction and turning within to our inner holy sanctum, our inner heart, our soul, that inner state which is not touched by whatever is happening outside of us. All the appearances outside get quiet when we're in this place. This is how we know we're there. Because we shift. Our mind shifts, our feelings and emotions shift, our whole body shifts when we come into that sanctum. Prayer is communion with God. And I say communion with God, but eventually it's union with God. Communion with God is there's a me and God. Union with God is there just is. But prayer is really meant to bring us into communion with God. And what is God but that which is our source, that which is more than just me as I identify myself. It is me in the wholeness of everything that is. That's communion with God. What is required to get here? What is required of this prayer? Oh, I'm starting to hear words. Affirmative. What are we affirming? Absolutely right. Yeah. Stillness. Going back to the words I was using, there's an act of prostration, an act of surrender and submission of our little self-made error beliefs. The little self that we hold in limitation, the little self that says, I can't, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable. That little self that's contained within our own self-made belief system. We prostrate to that self-centeredness, our limited identity. We submit and surrender to a pattern of wholeness and perfection that is God. We surrender. That God, we may call it spirit, you might call it Christ mind, you might simply call it the divinity within. Whatever words you use, it is that which is greater than the small self that lives in this world, but of which you are an integral part. This is prayer that changes us. It uplifts us and it sustains us in the hard times and it magnifies the joy in the good times. So when we talk about prayer, we aren't talking about just saying the right words. We're talking about sincere desire and the movement of our heart and our thoughts and our feelings. As a matter of fact, somewhere in, I don't have this quote, but somewhere in my readings I read that I put it in the newsletter. Sincere desire is a prayer. Because what we sincerely desire, we want with our whole heart and mind. We don't have to have the right words all the time. Words help. Words are powerful. We want to be aware of what we do say, but even without words, our heart speaks for us. Jesus fell to the ground and prayed. So I want to wrap this up because there's a second part to this activity of prayer that brings us to wholeness. And this is from Myrtle Fillmore. We started with Myrtle, we're going to end with Myrtle. Because she goes on to say, to keep one's attention and prayers in the spirit realm of mind without letting them work on out into the soul's expression and into actual physical doing, and I'm going to go on, of that which corresponds with what the mind and heart has thought and spoken and prayed, is to court trouble. Nice way to put it. You could say, suffer. It's going to bring some form of discomfort because you have prayed, which means your soul has aligned with these ideas. But to keep it in the realm of spirit, in that quiet little place, it is meant to be brought out when we leave our prayer room, when we get up from our prayer time. Do we bring with us that which we experienced and live from that? Or do we, and I'm going to tell you, I know for myself, it happens. I'm uplifted, I'm aligned, I said my prayers, I walk out the door, and I slowly start, sometimes fast, sometimes it spins my head how fast I can come back down into my habitual human behavior. So this is really important, and I thought this was very powerful, that when we pray and we make that connection, we now must live it. That's our fifth principle at Unity. It's not enough just to know these spiritual principles. You have to live from them to truly benefit from them. And not only do you benefit you benefit everybody. Finally, she says, prayer is an exercise to change our own thought habits and our living habits so that we may set up a new and better activity in accord with the divine law. So this is the prayer that transforms us, that heals us, and can transform and heal our world. Because that is a part of who we are. Jesus fell to the ground and prayed. And this is the kind of prayer. And we're going to learn more about what he prayed and what what decisions that brought him to in our next Sunday service. But that's where, as far as I'm going to take us to. Because when he prayed, he found the strength of God, and this led him to the decisions he had to make to accomplish what was his to do. So he lived what Myrtle was speaking to. Now, my call for action this week is simply this. How will we, because I'm in this with you, how will we use prayer this coming week? It's nice because we're going to have the prayer team meeting next weekend. How will you use prayer? Will you join me and commit to at least 10 to 15 minutes every day to simply stop and tune in to that which is divine within, in whatever way works for you, whatever way brings you back into that connection of your own sacred nature and the wholeness of God? Will you commit to doing that every day? The longer, the better. Well, actually, Myrtle talks about that too. She says you could do it too long because you don't want to go live on your meditation cushion, right? You're meant to live in the world. You're meant to bring this out into the world. But that's my ask of you today. Take it to heart and you decide for yourself how you want this week to be as we continue through Lent and releasing what is no longer serving us. Now I have an affirmation and then we'll go into a brief meditation. My affirmation that I came up with is I let go of all resistance. Sorry, I didn't make a slide for it. I let go of all resistance and I submit to the flow of divine life within. Very simple. I let go of all resistance and I submit to the divine flow of life within. I invite you to gently close your eyes. Find a comfortable position to go a little deeper now, a little deeper into that space that we've just been speaking to. If it helps, begin to focus on your breath. Just feeling the vitality and life of spirit as it comes in through your breath, enlivens the body. And on the exhale, feel that release of resistance, whatever that resistance is to. So we breathe in the light of life, and we breathe out, releasing any kind of resistance we have. We release it in our bodies, feeling the shoulders drop a little more, letting the face relax, feeling our mind come to a place of ease and flow. We do not have to stop the thoughts. We simply just let them flow by. And we feel our heart opening wide. And today we include both our heart and our mind, because this is the beautiful and magnificent balance of masculine and feminine. And by the way, every gender identity in between is included in this. There is no limit to how we express as God in this world. Feel yourself go a little deeper, where you feel the sense of sacredness. First in your heart, and then as it fills your mind. as we rest in this place, know that the power of this love, of this life, of this God-filled energy has no limits. And it speaks and influences every consciousness on the planet. As we all awaken to the sacredness of all life, to the abundance which is always present, and to the love that is the harmonizing energy which unites us as one. Once again, place your attention on your breath, feeling it gently moving air in life in. And now, as you breathe out, feel the flow of love. Breathing life in, breathing out love. Bring your focus and attention up behind your eyes. Begin to feel your body in the chair. And when you are ready, gently blink your eyes open. Namaste. Namaste.
So we move now into that time, our offering part of our service, because we know that as we give, so do we receive as well. It's through your generous giving, the Unity of Charlotte continues to be a light in this community. Different ways of giving. You can use that donate button on our website, unityofcharlotte.org. You can use your phone and you can text the word give to that phone number, and it works. I try it every week or so. I use that feature on my phone. You can set up bill pay on your own bank. You can use the QR code that goes to either PayPal or it goes to Breeze within our system. These are all ways that you can do. You're going to see on the plate that gets passed around little QR codes as well. You can take one of those and use your phone to give today on your phone. So, join me as we speak, or before we say it out loud, I invite you to either take your gift that you have here physically today in your hands as we bless it, or take the image of that gift that you may have already given or about to give later on. Take that as we bless it together. So out loud, joyously I give this gift, knowing the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. We are light, love, power, and presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Now there is peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Now there is peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creation, united all are we. Now we walk with each other in perfect harmony. Ours has begun with me, and this is the moment now. With every step I take, this is my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Now there is peace on earth, and it has begun with me. And we mean it! Hey!